Do you ever like look back at your Reddit and your subreddits and you go, I haven't been on this subreddit in a hot minute.
Sometimes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we're back, baby doll.
We're back.
We're back to talk about a new Netflix movie.
Yeah. That we kind of watched on a whim.
We were not thinking about this.
Yeah.
It's honestly all because of social media, I think. Speaking of social media, make sure you like and share.
Yes.
Right at the top.
Yes.
Gotta get them with it. Right at the top, Thano.
Exactly.
What are we talking about, Thano?
Well, we are talking about a young man by the name of David Fincher's new Netflix movie called The Killer.
You know what the funny thing is about this movie? I heard about it, and I knew it was a David Fincher movie.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming out. I had zero idea this was a Netflix movie. Because like I only heard about it through Dan Merle, and he was talking about like international release.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that sounds fun, I guess. I didn't know that I was just going to be able to watch it at home.
So I knew about it only from Netflix. It appeared on like the queue, right?
Ooh.
And I liked the poster. I was like, oh, this looks like some. It looked like Morse code, and I was like, oh, it could be an interesting concept. Spoiler alert.
It was
It
not.
wasn't.
It's kind of not.
But then you know what? Actually, sadly, it really pains me to say this.
Uh-huh.
You know what lowered my expectations for this movie?
What?
I start playing it. I see who the main character is.
Michael Fassbender?
And I was like, oh no.
You don't like Michael Fassbender?
I love Michael Fassbender. For whatever reason, his movies are poo-poo.
That's fair.
Yes.
I don't know if I would go that far.
Maybe not that far, but underwhelming. The level of talent in the man should
He needs a better agent.
put him in better things.
He needs a better agent.
Yes.
He needs to fire his agent right now. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But this movie, so this movie is actually,
and then I started to dislike it for other reasons. But
yeah, for sure.
We'll get there very
for
shortly.
sure. So what? Before we get started with the movie, what are your thoughts on David Fincher as a movie maker?
I like Seven.
Seven.
I love the first 2 seasons of House of Cards. I don't know how.
It's a Fincher thing.
He was partially involved, at least.
Oh,
I don't know if
was he like executive producer, which is basically means he gave him money and.
I don't remember. I'm looking it up right now, but like some of the House of Cards cinematography does look very Fincheresque.
All right.
I do think there's some pretty shot scenes in this movie that I'm like, it's a David Fincher movie. It looks nice. But that's kind of it. Right? So the little that I've seen, I've tended to enjoy.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't love David Fincher.
Yeah.
Most David Fincher things I've seen, I've at the most liked.
Yeah.
On average, I just thought was like kind of overblown and a little pretentious.
Yeah.
I really loved Gone Girl.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah.
This movie, I think, is a little up its own ass.
A little.
I'm trying to be nice, okay?
Well, it's got. We'll get there. Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
And also, I had heard that this movie had a scene filmed near to where we live.
And it was a nicely shot scene.
A very nicely shot scene. Confusing if
to the locals.
To the locals. But
when do we want to get into that, by the way?
Oh, we'll get to it. But overall, all right. So I think this movie, the reason why this movie kind of fails a little bit for me is because there is an interesting concept here. We follow a serial killer or not serial killer, an assassin. Yeah. It's never specified necessarily if he's like a government assassin. He's just like a hitman, right? And he done goofs.
Yeah.
And now he's got to deal with the consequences.
Yep.
And that's it. I just. The concept, I think, is very interesting. Everything around it is just a drag.
It's mid.
It's not fun. It's not super interesting because everything is so monotone.
Yep.
There's nothing for you to latch on. Like, yeah, he's like Michael Fassbender is doing a good job doing what he has to do, I guess.
He is.
But what he's being asked to do is not overtly interesting.
There's a lot of inner monologuing.
so much.
right?
And we discussed this.
Which we need to discuss this before we get into the inner workings of that.
Sure.
I could see someone who loves this movie. By the way, Reddit fucking loves this movie, which I don't get.
I'm not surprised, dude. Reddit's
Yeah.
so far up its own ass and
It
like
is.
film Reddit.
Yeah. Anyway, I can see a lover of this movie who could see people who don't like it. Be like, well, you just don't get it. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure, like,
What is there not to get?
I get it. Like his monologuing is supposed to be intentionally pretentious. Right.
Yeah.
But like there's just nothing else to like balance that out.
No.
That it's just grating.
You
In
know,
a similar way. And
you know. All right, well, finish.
I keep interrupting, so I'm sorry. But in a similar way, I just like people like thought Joker was offensive. I didn't go that far. I just thought it was like fucking grating. Like it felt like a pain to watch.
Yeah.
This movie feels like a pain to watch.
Yes, it's not as bad as watching Joker and feeling like the movie is trying to kick you in the nuts for 2.5 hours
Yeah.
to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
This movie is just like you're watching something happen that you know should be very interesting,
Yeah.
but it's just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's almost a little bit more offensive because, like I said, like the core idea is there. I don't know. So you mentioned like there's a lot of inner monologue,
Right.
and we did discuss like Dexter. A lot of the driving part of that show is you're listening to Dexter describe anything, something as mundane as to why he likes buying donuts, why he likes the Cubano sandwiches. I think that's like in episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what he's doing. He's like, I'm listening to like a song.
Yeah.
The Smiths, I think it is. I'm doing my push-ups. I need to stay fit.
That's how else you know this movie is shit because he likes the Smiths.
Like, even in Dexter, like he's talking about these like boring things, but his voice just doesn't sound like he's bored.
And there's a world around him. This movie could really use some other characters.
And thank you for saying that because I was gonna say it and then it went away.
Yeah.
But I think this is the reason why you are always kind of forced, or why people feel like they need to force human characters into like Transformers movies.
Yeah.
And they go, well, you need a human element. You need like an outsider to like let you into this world.
Yeah.
And I think this movie kind of proves why.
Right.
Because like if you don't have that, you just have this dude just like droning on about, now I gotta take my car into the storage. And Popeye says I am what I am.
Yeah.
And it's just not, there's like nothing going on.
Yes. There's no layers.
No. There's no onion here.
Yeah. Which might be intentional.
I guess, but if that's what your intention is, then excuse me for not liking it.
It doesn't execute.
It does not. Not for me. I will say the movie is not. It's easy to follow because it's split up into, kind of like easy to follow, like chapters. Right? Oh, before we go into the spoilers, is there any positives?
There's a great scene in Florida.
It's a great scene in Florida, which I don't think anybody's ever really said.
Yeah. I like the David Fincher look. There's scenes going down the staircase, right? There's a lot of brands in this movie, and that's part of the like he gets his McDonald's. He goes
I see.
and that's part of like the. I read it as part of like the mundane project that I read it thematically as like you think this killer's life is all glitz and glamour and globetrotting. No, it's actually very mundane. I'm like, yeah, I fucking get it. I don't care. Like, like I go to watch the glitz and glamour. I don't need to like see like him going to Amazon.
If I want McDonald's, I can go tomorrow morning and get my McGriddle.
Motherfucker, what do you
mean?
Goddamn carb.
Now I want a McGriddle.
Exactly.
Man.
But that's it. That was pretty much it. It's a solid runtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I said, I think this movie gets better as it progresses.
I agree.
I think there is an interaction between until the end. There is an interaction that happens in quote unquote New York. That I do think that scene as a whole,
It's a good scene.
aside glare like the glaring geographical issues,
Yes.
that I think is very well executed.
You just tell me when we can rant on it.
Oh, for sure.
I'll be ready. I'm waiting for your cue.
So, the movie starts. He's in Paris. He's supposed to kill someone. He's not sure who he's supposed to kill.
Yeah.
I do think that's kind of like interesting. I mean, we
Yeah.
got to watch him do dumb shit.
Yeah.
He just beats this shit.
And this is a 13-minute scene.
I think I messaged you and I'm like, it's been 15 minutes and nothing's happened.
Yeah. Like, okay.
I understand wanting to show like the monotony. You can do that in 6.
You can do that in 6. I got it. I got it within 6.
I know you're bored, man.
Yeah, me too.
Please.
As the audience.
Shit.
I'm like, you contrast it with let's pick a bad James Bond movie, right? Like you contrast it with Spectre, where like
There.
opening with the Dia de los Muertos, right? And you're like, it's all a one take shot, like everything's, so festive and blah blah blah. Like I think the point was like, yeah, but that's not what real hitmaning is like. It's much more tedious. But you know what? I would rather watch the shitty James Bond movie.
I would rather watch the fake shit.
I would really rather watch maybe one of the shittiest James Bond movies than sit here for 13 fucking more minutes.
Yeah. So that then leads. So he fucks this up, which leads him to the Dominican Republic to go find his hideout. He gets there. He finds that his girlfriend has been attacked.
Yeah.
He then tracks down the taxi driver who tells him these were like hit people sent by probably somebody.
And he kills this taxi driver.
Which, dude,
that's like this movie also doesn't really give us a reason to
like him,
like Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, because like I get that this guy, like inadvertently like assisted these 2 people.
Yeah.
But like, how the fuck was he supposed to know?
That and like also,
unless I missed something, I don't think so.
Like Michael Fassbender's character makes us believe that he's like super careful and like always covering his tracks. But the amount of like collateral damage he just like leaves throughout.
That goes back to my question at the end, which we'll go back to. Yeah. But it's just like unnecessary.
Yeah.
And like he just kills this dude.
Yeah.
For just driving a taxi, for doing his minimum as wage job in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
He then goes to see a lawyer.
Yep.
A dude named Hodges, I think.
Yeah.
Right? He goes to try to like wipe the information.
Where does Hodges live?
In New Orleans.
That's
New Orleans.
Yeah.
His grand plan is I'm gonna sneak in. I'm going to shoot him in the chest.
Yeah.
With a nail gun, and he's just gonna tell me what I need to know.
So this is where this movie, I think, lost me. Now, like, if this whole scene in like the lawyer's office was in like a Fast and Furious movie, where like the level of silliness is just acknowledged, I could be like, you know what? Enjoyable scene. But the fact that he's like so hyper like focused on being careful and like fucking like, making sure everything's clean. I'm like, motherfucker, you thought like he'd be able to like talk with 2 nails like protruding
3 fucking nails in the chest.
He has no incentive to like what at this point he literally has no reason. Like he's gonna die. Why would he tell you anything?
Absolutely.
And then also back to how this is like we didn't say this on the show explicitly. I call this movie more boring Dexter / James Bond, right?
Yeah.
The fact that like Dexter already played kind of fast and loose with the rules in terms of like
what's believable.
He should have fucking got caught, but like he didn't. But he like at least like tried to mask this up. Like this movie does so from a more serious angle. And then I was like, there would be more blood here. Like, oh really? You're just gonna take the body in the trash?
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
And then or she's like, his inner monologue is calculating. He's like, oh, he's about 5'10", 180 pounds. He should have 6 minutes. Oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
In the same breath.
Yeah. Yes.
It's it's so goofy that you're like, is this supposed to be like an attempt at like humor? Which it probably is,
Yeah.
but it just comes off
You
as
gotta
more
chuckle.
bumbling.
Like, but I think this movie was trying to say, like, this guy is not as competent as he thinks he is. It would be nice if there was some just desserts that, like,
Because
showed him.
that's not what the movie tells you at the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, so all right, so then he gets the info from the secretary.
Yep.
He goes to Florida. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
nice that he did at least kill her in a way that made it seem accidental.
yes,
Good for her,
Yes.
I guess. He goes to Florida, which we get a pretty solid action scene. But again, this guy is supposed to be getting the jump on someone,
yeah,
and he just immediately starts getting his shit kicked in.
yeah,
I find it hard to believe with the way he got hit by this mountain of a man.
yeah. Dollar
That-
store Jason Momoa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that he did not get knocked the fuck out. There are
Fair.
some hits
I-
that just from the way they looked, I was like, he should be on the ground.
You know, I won't. Fair. I will say, I dare I say, I kind of love this action scene. This action scene may have been worth like a whole star to me. Maybe that's a lot.
It's a great action
The
scene.
sound mixing in the scene is dope. Like, you feel like Michael Fassbender is getting bodied. Like in this scene, and I think everything about that just worked very, very well.
But he just kind of goes again with the whole point of like he's just not a good hitman
Yeah,
because like there's so many things you could have done.
yeah.
There's so many things that you could have done here.
And yet, the beginning of the movie before it starts makes it seem like he's supposed to be a really good hitman.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
like, I don't know, not consistent. Not consistent.
Not consistent.
Yeah.
He does kill him. Then he goes to the next person.
And Molotov cocktails his house.
He does, and he does not kill the dog.
Does not kill a dog.
Very good.
Does not kill a dog.
So this is where we get to New York.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Before the rant starts,
Yes.
we're in New York. There's a bit in Grand Central Station.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to the suburbs of New York.
Mm-hmm.
They do acknowledge that this scene does take place in a suburb.
Yes.
And I'm looking at buildings before it's confirmed where this is. I'm like, that architecture looks Chicago. Okay, anyway, let's continue.
Here's the thing.
And then what happens, Avi?
Here's the thing. So I remember hearing that this
Yeah.
movie takes place in chapters, and each chapter is a different
Yeah.
place. And I remember hearing one of these places is Chicago.
Yeah.
So my thought, my dumbass, straight thinking brain goes, the Chicago scene will have St. Charles.
Yeah.
No, fucking New York is the suburb of New York is fucking Chicago.
And I don't know.
Why?
And I don't know how many movies actually like do something like this. That like, and maybe just because like we're more mad because we know what that area looks like. But like this sounds really pretentious. Like I'm not an architecture expert, but I saw like just a facade of a building. I'm like, that fucking looks like Chicago.
Yeah.
Like before we even got to St. Charles, and then it was like in St. Charles. I'm like, oh, maybe I was just so bored with this movie that I missed that we jumped.
That's
to
what I
the
thought
next
too.
chapter.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess we just went from New York to Chicago, and
Yeah.
now here we are.
But we're in beautiful St. Charles, Illinois. Right? We're eating at the waterfront.
A wonderful looking street
Yeah.
with very recognizable.
Yeah, very
You know,
recognizable buildings.
buildings?
Some nice high-end restaurants. Tilda Swinton is there.
Yes.
How did I not know Tilda Swinton was in St.
I
Charles?
didn't.
Yeah.
But that's what doesn't make sense to me. Because if you're going to shoot a thing
Yeah.
near Chicago,
Yeah.
and then you have a scene set
In Chicago.
in Chicago,
Which is the next chapter.
then it logically just makes sense for that to be Chicago.
Yeah.
Why go to the New York setting
Right.
to then have that scene not be? See where else you could make it. You could have filmed that fucking scene
Yeah.
in a goddamn soundstage in Georgia.
Mhm.
You could have gone to New England and told me it was New York. I don't care.
Or the Chicago scene. The actual Chicago scene.
That's what I'm saying. The actual Chicago scene
There's
should have been
nothing
taken.
essential to it that could be Chicago.
Yeah,
It's a penthouse.
exactly. You
Yeah.
could have had it be a really rich
Yeah.
guy who lives in one of those houses in Wayne.
Yeah.
That's not very far.
Not very far.
Not very far. Anyway, that's my annoyance. I was so mad.
I'm glad I thought I was gonna be the only one who cared.
No,
I'm
I
glad
was
we both
so
care.
mad.
I'm glad we both care.
Anyway, that aside,
Yeah.
it does lead to a very nice conversation between him and Tilda Swinton,
Yeah.
who she's basically like, oh, like, due to this line of work,
Yeah.
I know this shit is coming at some
Right.
point. Like, there's no way you can do this for a living and not at some point be on the other end of that scope, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really like it's a fascinating scene.
Tilda Swinton knows how to. She is the kid who would her character rather is the kid who would talk shit in middle school, but then when shit was talked back to them, they'd be like, "Fair, you talk shit, you got to deal with getting talked shit back."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean she's not going to put up a fight when
No.
you talk shit about her.
But she won't like.
But she won't be like, "This is not fair.
Exactly.
Are you being mean to me?
Exactly.
I never did nothing." Yeah. And I like that whole entire scene, which is just like, well, we're gonna have my shots of whiskey.
And I like I like this part. Like the waiters are like, "Do you want me to explain them to you?" She's like, "I'm afraid they'll be all done before you."
At that point, she knows her number's up.
Yeah.
I think that then kind of does set up nicely-ish for like the final scene.
Yeah.
Or final-ish scene, right before the epilogue, where he goes after the guy who set up the original hit.
Yes.
Right. And this whole movie just kind of goes through the process of like him realizing like it is at the end of the day kind of personal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he fucked up, and he may have been okay with the consequences of that, but it's the fact that they went after his girlfriend for his mistake that he's like, oh shit.
Which, like, I feel if that motivation is so integral to him, she's not in it for like the point where she's introduced is like weirdly based.
Yeah.
And like you don't see her whether literally or like or her like spirit haunting the film. Like
there's also not just that, but like there's also he doesn't really like if we're supposed to be following his internal monologue, and let's say maybe on the outside he's being stoic, he's pretending to be like by the numbers, but his internal monologue is like, I'm angry at this happening.
Yeah,
that to me I think would make sense.
Like as mad as Quantum of Solace is, James Bond is mad that Eva Green died.
Yeah,
got it. And then at the end, like after this Chicago scene, like you see him like with the girlfriend. I'm like, oh yeah, like I forgot this was kind of his motivation.
Yeah, and that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me because like that is what's supposed to be happening here. Because at the end, he's just like the guy's like, oh, I put in the hit on this, but I'm not the one who called like you to be terminated because you fucked up. That was whoever's running this show.
Yeah.
And he just fucking lets him go.
Which I did not like.
I don't mind it. I do think he's looking for a way out at this point.
And this is his way out.
This is his way. His way out is, all right,
yeah.
I know that this guy's not going to come after me.
Yeah.
I didn't kill him, so he has no reason to come after me now.
Fair.
I'm out. But at the same time, I'm just like, you never told me that was what you wanted.
And I think why it's not that I didn't like. Okay, now that I heard it from you, I think I understand better what I don't like. It's not that I don't like that decision. I don't buy this character making this decision, like in this time.
Yes, and I agree.
I don't feel like he suffered throughout this film. Like he's just very one note.
Mm-hmm.
Like you buy, like even though it's too many Bond comparisons, but like even though it's redundant how many times they did this. Like, I buy that Bond wants to retire, or like, I buy that he was willing to like die here, like in the end of the last movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't buy any big character moment of Michael Fassbender in this movie.
And that's because I feel like this movie's too kind of, it's trying to be almost, I don't want to say if it's trying to be cryptic, but it feels like it's trying to be cryptic by not telling you the cards that are being held here.
Yeah.
When you're listening to the entire internal monologue of this character the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
And that's what to me doesn't make sense. Like if this movie did not have the internal monologue, I think I could buy that a little bit more.
Which is ironic because you're literally getting inside.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
camera, like,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
We should have all the cards
Yeah.
in his fucking brain
Yeah.
from what he wants, his motivations,
Yeah.
but we don't
Yeah.
because they're just not telling you.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds stupid because you always say like show don't tell, but in this case, he is literally telling you everything that he's doing.
But then even with Dexter, like maybe I'm the one what's wrong, right?
Yes.
And like you see, like he's not even sure, but there's nothing that like Michael Fassbender is not sure about. He's just like
so it just doesn't seem like the actions match the intent.
right? Yeah, like gotta make sure my heartbeat is whatever the fuck, right?
60. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was my big problem. And now, do you have anything else you want to add? That's basically it.
Yeah, we just get through that one.
We did, because there's nothing.
There's not much there.
There's nothing. It's a very straightforward movie.
Yeah.
It like I said, it does meander a lot. It feels long.
Yeah.
I don't even know how long this movie is, if I'm being honest.
It's a weird one that you're like, part of my brain realized that it was short, and that like time wasn't actually dragging along, but another part was like, this. I want this to be done quickly. It was weird. I was both conscious of the fact that it was a short movie, but that it felt like it dragged.
Yeah.
We maybe this is just strange to me because we just reviewed Thanksgiving. I do find it a little wild. Maybe not wild because like there's been like Scorsese's had direct to Netflix movies, right? It is kind of weird that this was a direct to Netflix movie for me. Like I could see a world where this had a theater. Like I could see the world where this was in theaters. I think I would have enjoyed it.
Please.
I think I would have enjoyed it more in theaters, but like I don't know. I'm surprised.
So
this was primarily a Netflix movie.
Here's my problem with this movie. I think with that perspective, right? I don't disagree. I think if this movie came out in theaters, it would force you more to pay attention to like the little details. But I think if a movie is good, even if you're watching it at home, it keeps your attention enough that you are not feeling that itch to like scroll or Twitter. I don't think this movie gives you that.
No.
This movie is too preoccupied trying to like be this like super cerebral like look at what's going on here. And you just don't have that chance.
Yeah. It's not 7.
It's not.
I can watch 7 on a couch.
It is absolutely not 7. But then that kind of leads us to this other question that I have. So, like, this movie has a budget of $175 fucking million.
Holy shit! All those on location shots, they couldn't even like make it interesting.
But all right, so we've discussed that we personally don't think that like Marvel movies are like the death of cinema or the cost of the death of cinema, right?
We are stands.
We are stands.
Yeah.
But people often go like, well, look at these Marvel movies. They're spending like $200 million and they're making like whatever back, right?
Yeah.
They're barely breaking even or they're not breaking even. And you're like, this is why cinema is wrong.
Right.
We should be watching movies from these auteurs.
We should be watching The Killer.
We should be watching The Killers of the Flower Moon. We should be watching The Killer.
Yeah.
Because those are movies made with passion.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, motherfucker? This movie is $175 fucking million.
For what?
For what? So that David Fincher can try to get an Oscar? Fucking Killers of the Flower Moon was $200 fucking million.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
For Scorsese to just be like, yep, the Indian people got screwed.
Yeah.
And those movies are also certainly not bringing in money to like, you know, big Hollywood either because they're going straight to streaming half the time.
Right.
So like, do we just not like the fact that it's not these like prestige name people making movies for $170 million to $200 million?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because that just doesn't make sense. Like if this movie was made for even $100 million, like Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer to me makes perfect sense.
Mm.
It's a $100 million movie.
Yeah.
with a ginormous cast of super famous people,
Yeah.
and the filming process, like the film that they used to make this movie, is expensive as shit,
Yeah.
and it's made by like a big name director.
Yeah.
Fine, $100 million,
And it was interesting.
and it was interesting.
Yeah.
But then this movie is $175 million.
Yeah.
What in this movie is $175 million?
How does the? I'm sure there's a way that this has got to work, but like, so this had some theatrical release.
It did. It had international release.
Okay.
The internet's kind of spotty, so I can't really fully check. But like,
yeah.
I think it's supposed to have a domestic release too, for um, like the purposes of award consideration,
But then, fair to say that most people would have encountered this through Netflix.
for sure.
I do not get the strictly from a financial perspective. I don't get the math of $175 million movie Netflix. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, because they're banking on people like staying signed on for the month to watch this, and like, like,
don't they realize that that's not what's going to be keeping people on? Like,
that's the thing, is this idea of like these big names will like draw people in.
like say what you will about MCU shows, like 8 episodes released over the course of 8 weeks. Like, doesn't matter how good or not it is. I can see why someone would stay on for the month or two to watch a show.
Yeah,
But a movie that's like an hour or 2 hours, no less.
that thing's like an hour 50.
Like, that's what's going to be keeping the people. I don't know.
I don't get it, dude. It just does not make it financially, and like this like weird. I don't want to say culture war, because that culture war to me seems very political. But like, this is a type of culture war.
Yeah.
Like, it's this idea of like, the super commercial parts of like Hollywood,
Right.
versus like the artistic side.
Yeah.
But like, when the artistic side
Can't even bring its A game.
can bring its A game,
Yeah.
and then also like when they do bring, let's say they brings its A game, but it's not making financial sense,
Yeah.
then what the fuck are we arguing about? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. Like, that's the thing. If Martin Scorsese had made Killers of the Flower Moon for $50 million,
Right.
and fine, let's say it only brings in, how much has it made in the box office right now? Couple. I don't even want to say it's made over 100 million, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Killers of the Flower Moon, box office, right?
Yeah.
So like, it cost 200 million, and it's made 145 million.
Oof.
So it hasn't even broken even. I'm not saying that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
But like, if the budget is 200 million plus advertising,
Right.
like, you're looking at minimum 300 to 400 million dollars that you need to make to break even.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about that being financially like disappointing.
And here's the thing. I honestly don't care. Like, I take the Iman Vellani approach. Like, let Bob Iger worry about how much money this made.
Yeah. By the way, what a quote.
What a quote. I love.
I love him.
Yeah, Kamala Khan's my hero. But like, the people who like are so obsessed with the numbers are the people who are like so pro auteur and like anti quote unquote commercial. I mean, the Republicans, right? That's what it boils down to. But like, I think it goes to show that this metric of, is it making money, is it not making money, like, is not useful for talking about like, is the film good, right?
Yeah.
I think it is useful for talking about like, okay, this is the type of movie we're going to get more of. This is what we're not going to get more of, and it's like a shame that this didn't do well. But like, I mean, we fucking had The Creator like earlier this year.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
Like, there is something about it.
Yeah,
but then to me, when you have these like huge giant names,
yeah.
people throw up on this pedestal as like, these people are here to like make good art, good cinema, and you're like, but then why are you throwing
Yeah.
commercial, like, crowd pleasing things under the bus?
Your metric for success is, are the people seeing it? And the people aren't just seeing the Marvel stuff, but they aren't seeing your shit either. They're like, it's bigger than just Marvel. It's like
This
bigger
is
than
a
the money.
systemic
Yeah,
issue.
Exactly.
And I think that's
It's almost like there was a plague.
it's almost like there was a plague and
Yeah.
people got accustomed to just
Yeah.
watching shit at home.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fascinating to me. You know what the funny thing is? This is not right. This still has the thing from the wrong movie. I was like, wow, this has the same rating as
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving? That doesn't seem
I'd be
right.
curious to see what people think of this movie.
That is a good point. Let's see the
I'll
killers.
put up the IMDb right now.
I am curious as to how Netflix is going to play this. Because this is a 2 hour long R-rated movie about a serial killer doing not a lot of exciting things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they'll like actually like tout the numbers as much as they
Right.
do with other things.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see. It's got an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.4 compared to a 6.7 from Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So only 1 point ish,
59% audience score, Rotten Tomatoes, 85%
which
score.
checks out.
Yeah.
Because like if you think of this movie from like an artistic point of view, like cinematography wise, it's shot very well.
Right.
Acting wise, I think it's acted well.
Yeah, I agree.
But like story wise, that's where you're falling asleep, and that's where you're losing a lot of these audiences.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm glad we at least talked about it.
Same.
Because I think that then made me feel like I didn't waste 2 hours of my day.
You know what? Even though I did question Netflix's strategy, it's nice to be able to find stuff on Netflix.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, maybe I'm a Netflix stan, but I like that I will see something on Netflix and it will be different than what I'm seeing elsewhere.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not upset that this movie exists.
Correct.
I'm upset this movie exists and it's $200 million.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
You know how we talked about how, like, I'm not mad that Marvel movies are not as great as they were, but it does kind of suck that they're $300 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same idea.
Same thing.
Just, where is that money going? Because I don't think I saw anything in this movie that made me feel like...
Went to that expensive ass restaurant in St. Charles.
Dude, I wouldn't be...
That ain't cheap. It ain't cheap.
That ain't cheap.
That much. Yeah.
That ain't cheap. I know a lot of that does inflate the budget when you have to consider like back end pays.
Right.
Because if it's going to streaming, like they'll give Fassbender a deal saying like we'll give you $10 million plus like I don't know 3% of the box office.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not going to have a box office,
right,
then we'll just give you X amount of million extra when it sells.
I see.
So like it's all built in there, but holy shit.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because you have, again, not to go back to Thanksgiving, but you got Thanksgiving with Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying he's like a huge name.
Didn't he just win Sexiest Man on Earth?
But like he's a recognizable name, and this movie's fucking $15 million.
Yeah.
So like people got to use budgets a little bit better. That's the only thing. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to our ramble, and hopefully make your watching of The Killer somewhat more enjoyable.
Yeah.
We will be back after our
Thanksgiving
holiday with more holiday treats.
Yes.
I know we've got a few things brewing.
Yep.
So
Napoleon's coming out soon.
Napoleon is coming out. Are we going to try to see that?
I want to see Napoleon.
Cool beans.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening to the Cine-Scoots movie show. Remember to like and share. Spread the word.
Yeah.
We're doing the Lord's work over here.
We are indeed.
We're over here pointing out geographical inconsistencies.
Yes.
Telling people that they need to do better.
The world can never have enough of men.
People need to be best, like our former first lady used to say.
Rosalind Carter?
Sure.
Who just died?
The best. That Ivanka, that
I didn't remember.
Melania
I forgot
also
that.
the best. Everybody.
Yes.
Until next time, he has been Tom,
He has been Javier.
and this has been the Cine-Scoots Movie Show. Bye.
Bye.